In a landmark decision that will be studied for years to come, the Supreme Court has struck down the Trump-era tariffs, ending a contentious and divisive chapter in U.S. trade policy that has shaped the economic landscape for much of the past decade. The ruling, delivered on August 16, 2025, reasserts congressional authority over international commerce, reaffirming the constitutional balance of power. For years, both businesses and everyday consumers bore the brunt of a trade war waged by executive order, facing higher prices and uncertainty. This decision dismantles the legal framework that enabled those tariffs, effectively rolling back years of executive-driven trade restrictions. The court's message is clear. Emergency powers cannot justify sweeping, protectionist measures that bypass the legislative process. Tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of imports are now invalidated, directly impacting prices on goods from electronics to furniture and even everyday essentials. Thousands of American companies, long burdened by these duties, now see a potential lifeline and a chance to reinvest in growth and jobs. This is more than a technical change, it's a major economic event, with ripple effects expected across global markets and supply chains. Lower costs for consumers and businesses will help repair strained relationships with key trading partners, opening doors for renewed cooperation and trade deals. The era of arbitrary, unilateral tariff actions is over, at least for now, signaling a shift toward more transparent and collaborative policymaking. The case pitted U.S. importers and industry groups against the executive branch's broad claims of power, highlighting the tension between economic interests and presidential authority. At its core, the question was simple yet profound. Can a president use emergency law to reshape economic policy without Congress? The Supreme Court says no, restoring the role of lawmakers. This restores a vital check on executive power, essential for stable economic governance and the long-term health of American democracy. The process of unwinding tariffs and issuing refunds will be complex and time-consuming, but the business community is overwhelmingly relieved by the clarity this brings. The uncertainty that hampered investment and planning has finally lifted, allowing companies to look ahead with renewed confidence. Companies can now make decisions with a clearer understanding of trade rules, enabling smarter strategies and long-term investments. This ruling signals a return to a more predictable, rules-based approach to international trade, benefiting not just the U.S., but the global economy as well. It's a pivotal moment for the American economy, a turning point that could define the next era of growth, innovation, and global leadership. The legal challenge focused on the president's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Plaintiffs argued the administration stretched this law far beyond its intent, using it for a broad trade war instead of genuine emergencies. Allowing such use would nullify Congress's constitutional power over trade. The administration claimed wide discretion to act for national security, but the court disagreed. The Supreme Court ruled the tariffs were an overreach, emphasizing that emergency powers are not unlimited. Major changes to trade policy require Congress, not just an executive order. This restores the traditional balance of power in trade policy. The economic case for tariffs was built on flawed logic, often relying on outdated theories and misconceptions about how modern economies function in a globalized world. Tariffs were supposed to protect American jobs and reduce the trade deficit, but in reality, they acted as a hidden tax on American businesses and consumers, raising the cost of everyday goods and making it harder for small businesses to compete. Data showed higher prices and increased costs for manufacturers, with more jobs lost than saved. Many factories faced layoffs or closures, and consumers felt the pinch at the checkout counter. The tariffs failed to reduce the trade deficit, which is driven by broader economic factors like savings rates, investment flows, and currency values, issues tariffs simply can't fix. Warnings that repealing tariffs would cause a depression were unfounded. In fact, history shows that open markets often lead to stronger, more resilient economies. Economists agreed, removing tariffs would stimulate the economy by lowering costs, boosting demand, and encouraging innovation across industries. Retaliatory tariffs from other countries hurt American exporters, especially farmers, who struggled to find buyers for their crops and faced mounting losses. The trade war harmed all sides, not just foreign competitors. Businesses around the world, including in the U.S., faced uncertainty, lost revenue, and shrinking markets. The Supreme Court's decision opens the door to de-escalate tensions and rebuild vital trade relationships, paving the way for renewed cooperation and economic growth. Removing tariffs is a necessary correction for greater efficiency and prosperity, allowing industries to thrive and consumers to benefit from lower prices and more choices. The U.S. can now focus on restoring access to global markets, strengthening its position in the world economy, and ensuring a brighter future for American workers and businesses. The Supreme Court's decision will ripple through global supply chains, affecting every link from production to delivery. Tariffs forced businesses to reroute supply lines and absorb higher costs, creating inefficiencies and delays in production. Their removal allows companies to return to cost-effective sourcing, significantly lowering operational costs and improving efficiency. Consumers will see prices drop on goods like washing machines, shoes, and electronics, making everyday items more affordable. The container shipping industry, previously suppressed by tariffs, is now poised for a surge in import orders, boosting activity. Ports and logistics will face short-term challenges as trade flows normalize, requiring quick adaptation to increased volumes. Businesses must quickly renegotiate contracts and adjust inventories to align with the new trade dynamics. Despite these hurdles, the long-term outlook is positive, with potential for growth and increased market stability. Removing trade barriers lets markets function efficiently, based on comparative advantage, enhancing global trade. The industry can expect more stable, robust growth, with increased confidence from investors and stakeholders. This is a fundamental step toward a healthier global economy, fostering international cooperation and prosperity. The benefits will reach American households through lower prices and increased disposable income, enhancing quality of life. The decision marks a return to efficient, resilient trade, setting the stage for a more interconnected world economy. One immediate consequence of the ruling is the potential for massive tariff refunds to U.S. importers. Billions paid in duties could be returned, injecting liquidity into the private sector. The process will be complex, requiring detailed claims, but the legal principle is clear. Taxes collected without authority must be refunded. For small and medium businesses, these refunds are a lifeline, helping pay down debt, invest, and hire. This capital return will ripple through the economy, boosting imports and investment. Critics worry about government finances, but the funds were improperly collected. Returning them will likely spur more economic activity and ultimately higher tax revenues. This isn't a stimulus, it's a correction, putting money back where it belongs. The private sector is best positioned to drive growth with these resources. The Trump administration defended the tariffs as essential for economic security, framing them as protection against foreign threats. They warned of economic disaster if the court overturned the policy, but this was more political theater than economic reality. The defense ignored evidence of harm to businesses and consumers, focusing narrowly on a few industries. The administration's arguments failed to address the broader economic damage. The Supreme Court was unmoved, focusing on constitutional limits. The justices rejected the idea of perpetual economic emergency powers. The decision is a rebuke to unchecked executive authority. Even in trade and security, the president is bound by law. The administration's defense ultimately collapsed under legal and economic scrutiny. For years, American businesses faced uncertainty from unpredictable tariff policies. The Supreme Court's ruling finally brings clarity, allowing companies to plan and invest with confidence. Projects on hold can now move forward, unlocking economic potential. Small and medium-sized businesses hit hardest by tariffs will benefit most from this stability and potential refunds. The end of arbitrary trade rules levels the playing field, fostering competition based on quality, not policy navigation. While logistical challenges remain, certainty is invaluable for growth. Economic prosperity depends on the ability to plan for the future. The court's decision restores predictability to U.S. trade policy. This is a victory for all who value a stable, rules-based economic environment. The market can now function more effectively, free from policy volatility. The fog of uncertainty has finally lifted for American business. The Supreme Court's decision redraws the lines of power in Washington on trade. It checks the imperial presidency and reaffirms Congress's authority over commerce and tariffs. Future administrations must now work with Congress to make major trade changes. This shift promises more deliberative, transparent, and stable policymaking. Congress is empowered to reclaim its constitutional role, ensuring diverse interests are represented. A legislative approach to trade is more durable and credible than executive action. The debate over trade will now take place in the proper constitutional forum. With the Trump-era tariffs gone, the U.S. faces a new opportunity. The Supreme Court's decision clears the way for a forward-looking, cooperative trade policy. Rebuilding trust with allies and re-engaging in good-faith negotiations is essential. The U.S. should lead efforts to modernize global trade institutions, not undermine them. Domestically, the focus must shift from protectionism to competitiveness, investing in education, infrastructure, and innovation. America can win globally by out-innovating, not by hiding behind tariffs. The court's decision offers a clean slate for open markets and cooperation. The choice is clear: embrace open trade for sustainable prosperity. The future of American trade policy and its global standing depends on this path. The failed experiment with protectionism is over. A new era begins.